it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet these super cute and fun fruit slice earrings. These are so much fun for summer, or if you just want to make like a big statement with your earrings, and they're really fun and easy to make. So we're going to make the fruit slices together. We're going to crochet these half circles together, and I'm going to show you the different color combinations that we'll use to make each fruit. We have a lemon, an orange, and a watermelon. And then we're going to do a little bit of embroidery to just kind of give the idea of some segments for our citrus fruits here. And then we're going to do a couple of French knots for our watermelon seeds. Finally, we will use some jewelry tools to connect these with jump rings. And this is a post back earring. So we're going to glue the back onto our lemon slice at the top. Now the finished earring is about 2.5 inches tall and about 1 inch wide. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle or yarn needle. This is a little bit more on the smaller side because we are using the embroidery floss. You don't want something too big. It'll be hard to weave your ends in. We're going to be using some post back earrings. This has sort of like a flat platform. We're going to glue it to the back of our topmost fruit slice, and they normally come with earring backs. Sometimes you have to buy them separately, but you can normally get a big pack of these for relatively inexpensive at the craft store, usually in the beading area or the jewelry aisle of your craft store. You'll need 4 jump rings, 2 per earring. These are little tiny rings that sort of have a cut in them, and you can like bend them open, put something on and bend them shut. These normally come in a large pack in the same area as the earring backs are sold. You'll need 4 of those, 2 per earring. We're going to be using a 3.75 millimeter F crochet hook for this project. And also to open up our jump rings later, you'll need some pliers. So these are jewelry pliers. They're a little bit smaller. They don't have to be jewelry pliers. You can use some regular household like needle nose pliers. I prefer to use 2 pliers to open mine. Some people can use 1. Some people can open these up with their hands. I can't, so I use pliers for mine. But jewelry pliers or some household needle nose pliers will work great for this project. To glue our fruit slice onto our earring back, I'm going to be using some hot glue. You could also use some craft glue, like the tacky glue that's out on the market. It's like real thick craft glue. That one would need to dry overnight, or you can use the hot glue like I'm using here. As a total optional idea, you can use some fabric stiffener on the back of your fruit slices. This is kind of like a watery glue. It dries clear. And you'll need a little brush if you're going to be using. This is just a real simple watercolor brush, just a little craft brush for that. If you don't have a craft brush, you could even use like a Q-tip to kind of dab it on. And this is a huge bottle of it. You don't necessarily, we're just going to use like a little squirt of it at the end. And I'm going to show you how to use it and everything. But this is totally optional. It's up to you. I like to put fabric stiffener on the back of mine because we will be wearing them. And this is kind of a embroidery floss is very like soft and silky. So it does keep it from curling or bending. So as an option, some fabric stiffener and a brush if you wanted to use that. So let's get started. Okay, I went ahead and made the fruit slices except the one we're going to do together. We're going to make a lemon together. So for each earring, we'll make a lemon, an orange slice, and a watermelon slice. Now, you could do all the same thing if you want to. You could mix up the fruits. You could do a citrus theme and maybe do like a lime here or something like that. Now, before we get started crocheting, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the colors and the rows. So each one of these fruit slices is 4 rows, just 4 quick rows. They're very quick to make. So for each fruit, let's go through each one. For the lemon, rows 1 and 2 are going to be in yellow. Row 3 is going to be in white. Row 4 is going to be in yellow again. For the orange, rows 1 and 2 will be in orange. Row 3 will be in white. Row 4 will be in orange. For our watermelon, rows 1 and 2 will be in pink. Row 3 will be in white. Row 4 will be in green. Okay? So let's scoot these out of the way, and we're going to grab our yellow, and you want to keep your labels on your embroidery floss the best you can because it really, really keeps it from tangling. So that one actually was falling off. So just keep at least 1 label in there. And when you pull it, just kind of hold the label and it'll stay put, okay? So for what we're going to do for our lemon is we're going to put a slip knot on our hook to begin. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up the loop and tighten. Next we're going to do a starting chain. Now if you prefer the magic ring, I do get this question from time to time. If you prefer the magic ring in this instance instead of, you know, doing a starting chain and making a ring, feel free to do that instead. It's totally up to you. So we're going to do 3 chains to start. So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to join in the farthest chain from the hook to create our ring. Again, if you want to use the magic ring, feel free. Go into the chain farthest from your hook, insert your hook, then you're going to bring up a loop with your yarn, and you'll have 2 loops on the hook. At this point, I like to kind of pull this down here like this because that's going to be my ring. So I like to sort of see it and get it, you know, kind of defined for me so I can see it better. Now you're going to bring that loop through the loop that's already on your hook, and our ring is ready to go. Let's move on to row 1. We're going to stick with the yellow for this. So what we want to do for row 1 is chain 1. And I also meant to mention we're going to hold our tail along the edge of our ring as we work to weave it in as we go along. So we're going to work 6 single crochets into the center of the ring. To make a single crochet, insert the hook into that ring, and we're going to go nice and slow because this is so tiny. We want to go nice and slow. Insert the hook into the ring, bring up a loop. You'll have 2 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. That's our first single crochet. We need a total of 6. So let's do 2 and 3 and 4 again, go nice and slow, and then 5, still holding that tail along the edge as we work, and 6. Okay, again, it's really tiny, just go nice and slow. Now it's not going to really look like much right now, it just kind of looks like a little blob, but it's going to become our little citrus slice soon, okay? So let's get a little bit more of our thread out of here. Okay, row 2. We're going to, again, stick with the yellow for this row. And what we want to do for this one is chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work. When we turn our work, we can let go of this tail because we're done holding it. When the tail faces you like this, that means you're in the right position, okay? So sometimes turning your work when it's kind of this misshapen thing right now is a little hard to see, but just make sure that tail is pointing towards you. So what we want to do for row 2 is work a single crochet into that very first chain. And if you notice, I'm sort of snugging things up as I go along, okay? And then in the next stitch, we're going to work 2 single crochets, okay? So 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet, just like that. And then we're just going to do that in every stitch across. Okay, just worked my 2 single crochets in each stitch around. I'm at the very last stitch here at the end. And I'm just going to work 2 single crochets to finish it off. So 1 and 2, okay? So now, it still doesn't look like a whole lot, but it's starting to get more of an arc shape. We are going to switch to the white. So let me grab our other slice, and it looks going to start looking like that, okay? So what we want to do now is we'll take care of all these ends when we're finished. But grab your scissors and just give it a little snip. Wrap the yarn around your hook, bring it through, and give it a little tighten. Now, grab your white. And this is a pretty easy row. We don't need to increase anymore. We're just adding a little edging. Okay, so what you want to do is go into that stitch where you left off, that very last stitch. Go in there with your hook. Grab your white, hook it on, and then bring it back through, okay? And then you can just tie it right on. If there's a way that you prefer to join yarn, also feel free to do that as well. There's lots of different ways. And you're just going to carefully tie it on there. And then grab your hook, and you'll go back into that same stitch. We can get all these tails out of the way. Again, we'll deal with those later. Go back into that same stitch, bring up a loop, and now we're ready for row 3. So for row 3, all we're going to do for this row is to chain 1 and then turn your work. Remember that tail is going to face you when you're in the right spot. And you're just going to work a single crochet in each stitch around, okay? And again, tightening it up if you need to, kind of give it a snug, okay? So we're just working a single crochet in each stitch. We're not really increasing anymore. We're just going to put a nice little edge on this, okay? So I'm just going to work my way around here. All right, coming up to the end. Again, just working a single crochet in each stitch around. That last one might be a little snug. You might have to kind of drill your hook in there a little bit. Okay, and now we have this little edge. So now we can cut this and we're going to go back to our yellow and do like the lemon peel, okay? So go ahead and wrap the yarn around your hook and bring it through and then just give it a little tightening there, okay? Lay it back down. We can scoot our white out of the way and we're gonna come back in with our yellow. Okay, so insert the hook once again in that last stitch where you left off. And we're gonna hook the new yarn on and just tie it right on. Now at this point we have lots of little ends to deal with, but it's okay. It goes by pretty quick. All right, we're gonna tie that new yarn right on there. Not worrying about the tails at this moment. We'll worry about those next. Okay, now grab your yarn, scoot your little tails out of the way, and then go back into that same stitch, bring up a loop, and then we're just going to do the same exact thing we just did with the white, okay? So chain 1 and turn, and then just work a single crochet in each stitch around. This is going to create our lemon peel, okay? So go into each stitch, working with that yellow, working a single crochet all the way across. All right, just coming up to that very last stitch, working a single crochet in that last stitch, okay? So now our little lemon slice is done. It looks a little rough right now. We're gonna kind of spruce it up. Cut the yarn, wrap the yarn around your hook and bring it through, okay? So let's zoom out just a little bit because we're going to bring these guys back into the picture here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to grab our needle and our scissors because we need to do a little bit of finish work here. Now, your slices will have a certain look, namely this white part, because it shows pretty prominently. It's going to look one way on one side and a little different on the other side, okay? Now, let me just zoom in so you can see that orange a little better. Can you see how this one looks different than this one? I prefer the way this looks better. So I made sure that all of my slices look the same way, okay? It will definitely look more uniform when you're wearing it. So with that being said, the one that we just made, we want to make sure when we lay it with the other ones that the white looks consistent with the other ones. So if we flip it over, it does not look consistent with the other ones. The white is a little less prominent. It almost looks like specklier, okay? So when we weave in our ends, and when you weave in your ends, be very mindful of what side is going to be facing out because you'll flip your slice over to weave in the ends, okay? So once again, let's scoot these out of the way a little bit. And we're going to grab our needle and our scissors. So I'm going to flip it over to the back now that we've established the front and the back, okay? And we're just going to, let's do one end together and then we can kind of do the rest of these on our own. So grab any of the ends, and when you have multicolor pieces like this, you want to make sure you stay in the same color with your tail, okay? So I have a yellow tail here. I'm going to go into the yellow section only to weave in my ends, okay? And just go really, once again, go really slow with this. It's small, it's a little fiddly, but if you just go nice and slow, it'll stay neat, okay? Now, we are going to be putting a little bit of fabric stiffener on the back of this, so we'll sort of lock some of these tails into place as well. All right, so I wove that in, and I'm just going to give it a little snip, okay? Now, we're going to repeat for the rest of our tails. And I also wanted to point out, when you weave in your tails, let's do this one together too, because I wanted to show you something. See how this is like really pointy because it has a knot? When you're weaving in, I'm going to flip it back over. When you're weaving your ends in, be mindful of how much you pull your needle inward, because it will change at this size, this tininess of a piece that we're making. It will change the shape of your piece, okay? So let me just show you. And you can also use that to your advantage and soften up some of those points that it creates, okay? So I'm going to come in here, and I'm using my thumb to kind of put the brakes on, because I don't want to pull it. It's still a little bit pointy. I don't want to pull it in too far because then it'll look flat, okay? So you can kind of pull it in and then sort of like shape it up, okay? So when you're weaving your ends in, just be really mindful of your tails and the shape that they're pulling and pushing your piece in, okay? So go ahead and repeat for the rest of your tails, and when we come back, we're going to put a little bit of embroidery on our pieces next. Okay, now you can leave this be. You can leave your little fruit slices be, or you could add a little embroidery to them. We're going to show you how to do that. So for our citrus, our lemons and oranges, we're just going to cut a little piece of yarn. Oh, I don't know, about 8 inches or so. And then thread your tapestry needle. Okay, so once your tail has been threaded, we're going to do like a side, a center, and a side, just like that, okay? So what we want to do is, let's start in the middle so we can kind of determine where the middle is. So we're going to come in the white area up through the middle like this, because we don't want to go down to the peel, because in a real lemon, we're creating like segments to make it look like citrus. We don't want it to go past the lemon peel, because that wouldn't make sense. So come up from the back, and then we're going to go back down. Just go right into this hole here, and then back down. Okay, just really simple. And then we're going to come off to the side here. Same thing, come in from the white area, kind of halfway between, and we're going to tie that down and get it snug later. But kind of halfway between the one we just did and the edge up here. And just bring it up and back down. Just go nice and slow. Okay, and then we'll do our final one. Same way, but just on the other side. Come up from the white area here. And just really take your time with this. Come up. And don't pull too hard like I did, because it'll buckle. And then go right back in. Okay? And now we have a little lemon, and you can kind of adjust things as needed. Okay, so now our lemon has some segments to it. Okay, so straighten it out the best you can and get everything nice and neat. All right, and then the best way when you're done and everything looks the way you want it to look, you can sort of weave in your end while it's still in your needle, and kind of in the direction of this other end here, because we're going to tie those together, okay? So I'm just going to weave that in towards the other one. Okay, and don't pull it too hard, because we don't want it to pull on this side, okay? And then once they're in the middle here, you can tie those together. Again, just go nice and slow, be very careful. Okay, just like that. And then just make sure everything looks how you want it to look. Okay, now that's, again, it's totally optional if you wanted to make the segments, and you may need to straighten things out a bit. The next thing we're going to do, oh, and then the back, we can just, you can weave those ends in, or you can kind of snip it. It's totally up to you, okay? The next type of embroidery we're going to do is our watermelon seeds. So grab a little length of yarn again, or floss rather, and this time, if we were to use the full ply, it would be too thick, okay? So what we want to do is we're just going to do a couple, like maybe like 3 seeds. What we want to do, a lot of times, if you've ever done like cross stitch or counted cross stitch, for certain parts of the piece that you're working on, you might have to pull your thread apart to make it finer, especially if you're like outlining something. So this is just kind of an example of that, like another trick you can do. Okay, so I did it so that there's just 2 threads, really tiny. Okay, so once your needle is threaded, you're going to grab your watermelon. Now I have a couple seeds here. I'll do one more to show you. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up from the back to the front with your needle and bring it almost all the way through. You want to leave yourself a little bit of a tail. And then at this point, I like to lay it on the table because that helps. So what you want to do next is grab this thread that's coming up from the front and wrap it 2 times around your needle and then sort of like tighten it down against where you're going to be putting the French knot, okay? Then go into your project with your needle just slightly over from where you came up. You don't want to go exactly where you came up because it'll just pull through, but you want to just go slightly over from where you did it and go in with your needle and just pull it through. Just be very slow and gentle with it. And when you pull it through, you'll have a lovely little knot, okay? Now you can kind of straighten it out a little bit. So then what you want to do is, now this one's kind of off center now, but I have some other ones that I already did. But when you're finished with the amount of knots that you need, then you'll go to the back of your work, and you can take your needle off at this point, and you'll just tie this to the back. Just give it some very gentle knots. You don't want to pull it too tight because it will pull the knot through that you just did and kind of distort it. Okay, so just give it 2 gentle knots and then just trim up the back. Okay, so you could add a bunch of seeds. You could just add 2 or 3. It's totally up to you, whatever look that you're going for and how it looks on your piece. This is all hand stitched and handmade, so everybody's is going to look a little bit different. And then you'll have your cute little watermelon seeds. So just repeat for the number of seeds you want and repeat on the other slice as well. Okay, our watermelon has some little seeds, our lemon has some segments, so you can go ahead and repeat for the rest of your fruit. Okay, so once you're done embroidering everything, your ends are woven in, and everything's all the way you want it to be, you can do some fabric stiffener on the back. Now that will help things stay put. When you wear things, they tend to want to fold and bend and curl a little bit. So this will keep things nice and stiff, and it's very easy to use. Now, this is from the craft store. It's a huge bottle. You don't really need this much. It's sort of like a runny school glue, if I had to compare it to something. But anyway, you can find this in the craft store or like a sewing store, like where they sell fabrics and things like that. So all you want is just a real simple little brush. This is, I think, like an old watercolor brush. And I just put mine on some Post-it notes. We're not really going to goop it on a whole lot, but what you want to do is flip them over to the back. We're not going to paint the front. We're going to keep our stitches the way they're looking when we first made them. But you want to flip things over to the back side. And this will also lock all your tails into place and all this embroidery stuff that we did. And then just squirt a little blob onto your other Post-it note. And it's not going to be enough to like seep through and make a mess, but you don't need a ton of it. And the trick is to do multiple thin layers. Okay, so I like to kind of start from the middle and then just brush my way out. And this is going to dry clear. So right now it looks a little white, and that's helpful so you can see where you've been, but it will dry clear. And then you'll just want to get a couple of thin layers on there and just get each one. You don't want to go thick on this because you don't want it to seep through. You don't want it to show on the side that will be facing out while you wear them, okay? And you can see how quickly it turns clear when you're using it. But you'll want to let this dry for a couple hours at the very least. I like to let it dry overnight. So what we'll do is we'll let this dry overnight, and then we'll finish our earrings and assemble them when it's dry, okay? So we're just gonna put some thin layers on here on the back of each one of these little fruit segments, and this will get things nice and sturdy for us, okay? So now I've done each one. I'm just gonna go back and just do a thin layer once more, okay? Again, don't go too thick. It'll soak in and show on the other side. We don't want it to show. Okay, so once you've done that, and I'm going to do these 3 over here as well. Once you've done that, we're going to let this dry overnight, and then when we return, we'll get some of our jewelry making supplies that we talked about earlier in the video, and we will put all of this together, okay? So make sure you go around the edges too, nice. Okay, so let's let this dry overnight, and when we come back, we will put everything together next. Okay, our fruit slices have dried overnight, and you can see they have a little bit of stiffness to them. So let's flip them back over, and we're going to kind of move these cards. You can see there's not really anything on the cards. You just need a little something to protect your surface. And our fruit slices look very, very cute. And now we're ready to assemble them. So we want to first put them in the order that we will be using them, or hanging them, I guess, from our ear posts. So we have, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we have the posts with like this little platform here that we're going to be gluing with the backs. And then we have some jump rings that will be attaching the, kind of like connecting the fruit slices together. So we won't need any to attach this. We're going to be gluing this to the back of our lemon, and then we'll use 2 per earring to connect our slices. So what you'll want to do next is to, we're going to assemble, and then we'll do our gluing. So our assembly is only going to take like a minute or 2. So if you want to use hot glue like I'll be using, you can also use a craft glue or something, your favorite glue. That's something nice and strong. You can plug in your hot glue gun and let it kind of warm up while you're connecting these, okay? So grab one of your jump rings, and what you're going to do is you're going to look for the little, they have like a little cut in them so you can open them up. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, I like to use 2 sets of pliers. You can use 1. Some people use their hands to open them up, but whatever you feel comfortable doing. So what we're going to do is sort of give it a twist to open it up. And then we're going to start with this watermelon. We're just going to hook it in that loop here. And then our orange, we're going to hook it in the centermost stitch. So we're just going to kind of like go in that stitch, go very, very carefully. And I know it's very small, but we're just going to kind of run that in that bottom stitch there. Now grab your pliers again, and we're going to close the ring back up, okay? So just kind of close that back up, and now our little slices are connected. And then we're going to do the same for our lemon. So find like the little cut in your ring, open that up, give it a little twist, and we're going to hook this into our orange. And then find that centermost stitch of your lemon, and you might need to kind of turn it a little to see the centermost stitch, but then just run that into that bottom stitch and go nice and slowly and carefully. You don't want to split any of your embroidery floss. And then we're just going to grab our pliers and give that ring a close, okay? So this earring is ready to go, so we can put that aside. Now you're going to repeat for your other fruits as well. Okay, everything has been connected, and now they're ready to glue. So just flip them over, and then all we're going to do is grab our glue gun and put a little blob. You don't want to do too much with crochet stuff because it'll soak through to the through the stitches to the other side, but you want enough so it stays put, okay? So just put a little blob. Not too big, and then we're just going to squish it down on the back of this yellow. Don't push too hard either because it'll squish it through those stitches, but you just want to kind of tap it on there, and then repeat for the other earring. I do that circular motion to kind of get rid of the strings, but if you do have some, you can just pull them off, or waving a warm hairdryer will also make them disappear. All right. So we just want to let those sit for a minute and kind of harden up and cool down. Okay, our glue has completely dried and cooled, and our earrings are complete, and they look so cute, and they're ready to wear. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and that is how you crochet the fruit slice earrings. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!